Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another College and Career Pathways, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. we provide you with information on various colleges and universities, financial aid resources, technical schools, training programs, skilled trade professions, career readiness skills, all designed to help you make the best career decisions possible. I'm Toni Cureton, your host, and today we are with Michigan Schools and Government Credit Union, and we're continuing our financial literacy series. And today we're going to be talking about understanding credit cards and how to use them and how to get them and what you should do when you get them. Welcome back, Colleen. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back as always. Credit cards is always a favorite of mine. It gets so many questions, and as we saw previously, it's an interesting topic before we even get to it. So hopefully we'll cover a lot of lingering questions we had previously. But we're going to hop right in. There is a video. It's not my favorite video, so it actually, I think, goes better at the end of the presentation. So, Ms. Cureton, you might have to remind me because I might forget. But let me go right to... All right, credit and credit cards. So first, come on. There we go. First is we're just going to look at an intro. We're going to go backwards a little bit. What is credit? What are the different types of credit before we jump right into specifically credit cards, which is one example of credit. And then we'll look further into how credit cards work, what the terminology is, how making payments work, and really the credit cards 101 of everything. So what is credit? Now, if everyone's in front of me in a classroom, I'm looking around saying, you guys, you've heard the term credit, right? If I say, who knows what credit means? I know what credit means. I know what credit means. Okay, give it to me in a sentence. And if I said, okay, guys, I want each of you to put in the chat, put it in a sentence. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to verbalize or, well, I think I know what it is, but how do I explain it? Credit. It's the idea of buy now, pay later, but that's a very simplified version. When I say, what's credit? Well, credit is having the ability to obtain something now upon the promise of payment in the future. So again, an oversimplified definition is buying something now, paying for it later. But what's the concept of credit? Well, it's having the ability to obtain something now and have it in my possession upon my promise, upon my good word, the payment will come in the future. So it's not automatic. It's not a guarantee. It's an ability that you need to earn and maintain. And what are some examples of credit? A credit card, an auto loan, a student loan, a home loan. Those are all different examples of, driving a car around now, but I haven't completely paid it off. I'm still making payments on it. I live in a house, but I haven't paid the whole house off. I'm still making payments. So credit is being able to take advantage of, use and enjoy something right now while you are in the process of paying it off. So a credit card is just one example of credit. So last week when we're saying, well, do we have to get a credit card? We'll get to that. But a credit card is just one example of showing responsibility or irresponsibility when paying back, when giving your word. How good is this person's word? So do I need credit? Not do I need a credit card, but do I need credit? Do I need the ability to borrow money? Well, devil's advocate. I always heard pay everything in cash. If you can't afford it in cash, then you can't afford it. Don't borrow it. Okay. All right. I can't argue. is this screen? Can you see? Is that being covered up on the left side there, the screen? I don't know. But do we need credit? Loans can be some of the the gatekeepers to our biggest goals. You might not need a loan now. You might not need a loan for 10 years, for 20 years. I'm not saying go out and start borrowing money. But when you start saying, I'm never going to borrow money, I have no intention of borrowing money, I'm not even going to think about needing to borrow money, now you're shutting out opportunities, right? You're losing out on potential opportunities. So taking a step back, what are some potential goals that we might have? Graduating college. Well, maybe I don't feel like starting a 4-year university is for me right now, but within a few years, maybe it's something I want to, do. Taking a large travel, a big visit around the world or to a foreign country, studying abroad, taking a semester abroad, starting a business, paying for a wedding, certainly buying a house. Even if you can, save up to buy a car, you can save up to buy a cheaper car or keep buying used cars. Even a inexpensive house is still tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, which you don't often have lying around on hand. And you can't, well, I shouldn't say you can't, but oftentimes you can't wait, the length of time it would take to save up 30, 50, 60, 80, $100,000. So getting a loan, borrowing money in itself isn't always a bad thing, isn't always a last resort, a terrible, irresponsible thing to do. If I want to buy a home for my family, my word is good. I have a steady job. I promise to make payments. And we're going to live here in the meantime. That's a perfectly reasonable arrangement. Right? So don't have this bad taste of any type of credit, any type of borrowing is automatically bad. It can be irresponsible, but also achieving our goals may take borrowing a little money. And it's my job here talking to you all to help you get through those steps, to help you with that willpower and the self-control and the knowledge along the way, so that when you do borrow money, you can successfully open up that business and it's not a negative experience. So I hope that that intro makes sense. Looking at different types of credit. Now, it kind of looks like there's 4 different types: secure and unsecure. There's really all loans, all types of credit can be described as either secure or unsecure, but all loans can also be described as installment or revolving. In the same way that you could say all schools are either a public school or a private school. Okay, all right, I got you. It's either public school or private school. But you could also say those same schools are split between high schools and grade schools. Well, okay, it's not necessarily that there's 4 types of schools, it's just 2 different ways of categorizing them. All we're going to look at today is secure and unsecure, because that's the most likely that you'll come across, that you'll have conversations about secure and unsecure. So again, if I had everyone in front of me, I'd say, look at this up on the board, look at the examples we have. A secured loan, you think secure, what's safe and secure. Examples of a secured loan would be like an auto loan, a home loan, motorcycle loan. Okay, so what do those loans have in common with each other? Okay, well, they're all expensive. They're all objects. I'd hopefully get a bunch of answers. If we're looking at unsecured loans, you think unsecure, you kind of think unsafe, not unsafe, but maybe less safe than a secure loan. Well, a student loan, a credit card, a personal loan is a loan for, let's say, like a wedding or to go traveling on a trip. There isn't a specific object attached to it. It's just, I would like to borrow $10,000. I would like to borrow $20,000. So if we're looking at what do these types of loans have in common with each other, I'd love to get some input here. But if we start looking at the connections, like I said, a personal loan doesn't have a tangible physical item attached to it. Whereas a secured loan, well, if I'm taking a loan out for a car, well, there's a physical, tangible car attached. For a home, there's a physical, tangible building, motorcycle, boat, RV, four-wheeler, same thing. There's a object that can be taken away. So a secured loan has collateral. Collateral is a fancy word for those objects. If you don't pay your loan, your home will be taken back. If you don't pay your loan, your car will be taken back. Your boat will be taken back by the financial institution who actually paid for it. So getting a secured loan is one route, one way to go. Getting an unsecured loan, such as a student loan. Well, what if you don't pay your student loan? What's going to be taken away? Well, there's no physical object. They can't, nobody can kind of negate your college experience. Say, well, you didn't go. We're going to pretend your degree doesn't exist anymore. There's none of that. What if you don't pay your credit card bill? How do you take back the pizza that I bought and ate? How do you take back the gas that I put in my car? So there's loans where you can't take the physical object back. So what would the difference be? Unsecured loans are harder to get. They're more expensive to get. They take a lot more background, experience, credentials, a lot more positive reputation to get. So again, just keeping in mind, there's different examples and different types of loans. When you say, what are your loan rates? Well, that's a good question, but it's very vague. Are you talking about our secured loan rates for a used vehicle? Are you talking about our credit card rates for a fixed rate card? Loan rates vary depending on what type of loan you're looking for. All right, now we're going to look specifically at credit cards. Credit cards, again, being one type of loan, but usually a young person's first interaction with credit, first time getting involved. You're not usually going to get a car loan or a student loan or a home loan before you've had a credit card. And again, I alluded to last time that just because you have a credit card doesn't mean you have to be using it all the time. So again, we got a big group in front of us. And I want y'all to take a second and think credit cards, tool or trap. If I said, I've got a credit card in your name for every one of you and I'm handing them out, how excited are you? Or if I said, I've got a credit card for every one of you with your name on it, and you're like, keep that credit card away from me. I do not want it. I have heard terrible things. I've been told to stay away from them. People usually have a strong opinion either way. They think credit cards are the greatest thing, or they think they're the scariest thing to stay away from. As you can tell, I like analogies. I like examples. I compare credit cards to a car. Our car's dangerous. Our car's terrible, dangerous machines that should be taken off the road. I mean, I suppose they could be. I mean, if you give a 14-year-old a car and say, here, you can figure this out. Steering wheel turns where you go, and this one goes forward, and this one makes you stop. You can kind of figure it out. After a while, you'll be able to get around. But is that the best way to learn? Is that the best way to go around driving a car? Absolutely not. You're probably going to get into accidents. You're probably going to cause harm and damage to other people, to property. You're going to break laws because you're unaware of the laws. You haven't been to any sort of driver's training. So it's pretty expected that that's going to be a disaster, right? That's why we don't do that. That's why it's irresponsible to just give a 14-year-old a car and say, figure it out. But if we say, well, now you're 15, 16, we think you've matured a little bit. We have these specific classes for you to attend. We have this specific vehicle for you to practice with. We have these specific skills, driving at night, driving on the highway, that we want you to practice. And then, and only then, after a learner's permit, then you have your own driver's license and you're able to drive a car. And we feel you're responsible enough to know the laws, to check both ways. Mistakes happen. You're not going to be the most responsible driver ever, but you've had some education. In the same way, if you just get a credit card, that you just get one, someone says, would you like one? And you're like, okay. Or you get something in the mail that says, sign here and this credit card is yours. And you're like, okay. Does that seem like the best way to sign up for a credit card? It might sound like the easiest, but it is the most disastrous, right? A credit card can be a tool. It can be great. Like a car can get you from A to B. It can carry a bunch of stuff. It can keep you warm. It can keep you cool. All of those things. A credit card can do all kinds of good things for you. But it can also put you in a position of high debt with a bad reputation, put you in a position that's very difficult to get out of, to climb out of, where you feel you're being taken advantage of. That's why you're here. It's okay. That's why you're here. That's why we're talking about this, so that we're going to avoid that trap, right? That your first credit card, your second, your every credit card is very purposeful and used as a tool and helps you. Okay, so where do I start? How do I choose one? You mentioned they come in the mail. Well, I mentioned they come in the mail because simply by being your age, 17, 18, 19, 20, you're just a young person who's eligible for a credit card and quite honestly doesn't probably have that much experience or education in finance or interest in reading the fine print. And you're just excited about getting a credit card and you're not really going to ask any questions. So that's at least a 50-50 shot if I send it to you in the mail that you'll sign up for it. From a business standpoint, yeah, it's worth a shot. It's a great idea. I'll send out a bunch of credit cards. A whole bunch of you will sign up for them. Again, now is Colleen talking to you. Credit cards are not all created equal. They are not all the same. I say how debit cards are not all the same. You may have different fees at your financial institution. You may have different overdraft, rules. Credit cards can be really, really different. So just because your mom's credit card is like that, or just because your friend has a credit card that does something, doesn't mean that's how they all work. First, you're figuring out, why am I getting a credit card? Right? I just said, I don't want you to just go out and get one for the sake of it. Well, why? Why do I want one? Well, I want to order things online. And even though ordering things online is safe, it kind of makes me uncomfortable putting my debit card number in because, if something happens and the number gets stolen, then that can drain my bank account. And by the time it gets all figured out, it's really difficult. So, what, if I order things online, I'd like to have a credit card that I can use just in case of potential fraud. Well, what about, I'm going off to college. I'm going to be living independently. I might get a flat tire sometime. I might get stuck in traffic and run out of gas. What if I don't have any money on me? What if it's another 2 weeks until payday? I need to have a credit card in case of emergency. I need to get that new tire. I need to pay that tow truck to get out of here. So I just need a credit card for emergencies. What if you want to say to yourself, well, I'm 18. I don't necessarily need a credit card. Getting one as a safety net is a good idea, but I do want to start building some credit. I do want to start building reputation. So I'm going to sign up for a credit card. I'm going to look for one with low fees. But I'm just going to kind of keep it in my back pocket, keep it at home, maybe use it rarely, a couple times a year, just so there's something in my name that I'm working on. There's different reasons to get a credit card. Therefore, there's different things to look for, right? I use these pictures as examples, not for any real specific, but to show we got some, Sky Miles, we got PlayStation, those snowboarder that can be enticing. I mentioned my very first credit card was leopard print, and that's the whole reason I got it, because I was like, an animal print credit card. That's so cool. Nobody has that. That should not be your entire reason for making a financial decision. Terrible reason. Do your due diligence. Do your research. You are not going to buy a car just because there's a picture of a snowboarder on the side of it. You would never do that. You wouldn't buy a car just because someone's like, you're going to love this red car. It's perfect. I know how much you love red. It's perfect for you. Just because it's red? Oh, I know you like PlayStation, so this credit card is perfect for you. I like video games, so this financial decision, it doesn't match up like that. Why do I want this PlayStation card? How much is the fee? What do I get out of it? There's so many questions. So I'm just saying they're not all created equal. Now, what do we want to look for, right? Let's translate the lingo. What do we need to know? Credit limit, the max you can spend. Credit cards are not unlimited, an unlimited golden purse, so to speak. You can't just keep using them until the card gets so hot it melts. At some point, it's going to say you've reached your maximum. Now, most first credit cards or youth credit cards will have about a $500 limit, maybe even a $300 limit. We have cards with a $300 limit as well, meaning you cannot spend more than that in a billing cycle. So if it's $500, you cannot owe more than $500 in January. You cannot owe more than $500 in February. And we're going to look at some more examples of that. Balance is how much you owe out of the total, because again, just because you're allowed to spend $500 certainly does not mean you need to go out and spend $500. Minimum payment. Here's the kicker. Here's what makes credit cards so special is you don't have to pay the whole thing. You can just pay a small amount towards the total bill. And it's a credit card luxury. It's saying, we understand this is really expensive. This new refrigerator or this new couch or this new computer. So instead of paying for the entire $5,000 computer or $2,000 couch, why don't you just pay us in little pieces? It makes it sound a lot more doable. So let's keep that in mind as we're moving forward. We also want to keep in mind the next kicker, APR. Interest rate. APR stands for annual percentage rate. So the percentage that you pay towards interest rate. The extra you pay on top of, the purchase. If this bottle of water costs $1, this costs $1, but with, 19% APR, well, maybe now it's $1.19. That number you want to be low. And as a general rule, you ask someone, should your credit card rate be low or high? Oh, low. I want a low credit card rate. Great. Glad you know that. Glad you understand that you should have a low number for your credit card rate. But unfortunately, sometimes it stops there. You just stop at a low number. You need to ask another question. There's one more question you gotta make sure to get accomplished. Is it a fixed rate or a variable rate? Using the example here, we have an anchor. An anchor is fixed in place. It's a fixed object. It's staying where it is. It's not moving. So if you have a credit card with a fixed rate of 10%, it's 10%. 5 years from now, it's still 10%. 25 years from now, if you still have that same credit card, 25, 30 years in the future, it's still 10%. A variable rate or adjustable, those are synonyms. If something can vary or something can adjust, adjustable, variable, it means it can change. If it's floating on the surface, the water level could go up, could go down. So sometimes if you're starting today at 10%, well, that means it's able to go up. It might vary and swing in the up direction. And I'm going to guarantee it's going to go in the up direction. It's not going to go in the down direction. By definition, it could. And a salesman may say, hey, variable means it could go up or down. It might go down. And true, by definition, it could, but it won't. Especially while you're young, it's a great way to get you locked in with a low number without you really noticing or asking any questions. And how long is it going to be before you figure out that rate has increased every single year? And now it's at 18% or 17%, right? So what is that rate? What's that number? And is it fixed? Is it going to stay? Is it going to be predictable? Or is it variable and it can change without my consent? Again, I don't have any choice in, no, thank you. I don't want my interest rate to be changed. Thanks anyway. No, they say, well, it's going to be changed because that's how it works. That's what you signed up for when you signed your name on this contract. All right. Now we're looking at actually making payments. This is a brand new credit card, brand new. I gave it 19.8% APR. Now, is that good or bad? Again, I'd ask her, is that good? Is that bad? Well, for me, I'd say terrible. If I say, Miss Cureton, would you like a 19.8%? She would say, absolutely not. That is terrible. But that's because we've had decades of history in credit. We're very responsible. We've earned ourselves a lower rate than that. But as a new 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old, you're not necessarily going to get rewarded with a really good rate. And you're probably more likely to be taken advantage of by being offered a very high rate, 25, 26%. So 19.8 is kind of okay. It's not good, but if you're just starting out, it's something that you can settle for as a starting, right? So you want to stay under 20%. Make sure you're staying under 20%. So this person got a brand new credit card in January. There's no previous balance because they just got it. They weren't planning on using it, but they got into a car accident. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Got into a car accident. Comparison shopped, took it to this one shop. It was $2,000 worth of repairs. They didn't get paid that week, so they said, I got to put $2,000 worth of repairs on this card. Okay, it's fine. Get a bill at the end of the month. Dear sir or ma'am, please pay $40 towards your total balance. And you're reading it like, oh, $40. I was really worried there for a minute. I thought you were going to have to make me pay hundreds of dollars. I can afford $40. Here you go. And then next month, February, dear sir, madam, thank you so much for your payment. Could you please pay another $40? Sure, here you go. March, dear sir, madam, thank you so much for your payment, and on and on. And as I'm making these payments, well, I'll just put myself in first person. As this person's making payments, they're feeling kind of responsible. They're paying on time. They're making sure they pay early. They're doing exactly what the bill is asking them to do. And they're feeling pretty good about themselves. In fact, as you can tell, they haven't purchased anything else. They haven't made a single other purchase. The only thing they're doing is paying off that original balance. Okay, right? Now, one day in May, they happen to be looking over their statement and thinking to themselves, I've been paying for 5 months. I've been sending $40 a month for 5 months. So I've paid $200. I've contributed 200 of my own dollars. So shouldn't I owe $1,800? Shouldn't I owe $200 less than 2,000? Because my balance is only $68 less. That seems odd. Well, let's dig a little deeper. Let's look at our statements here. Yeah, I was paying $40, the minimum payment that was asked. But wow, $33 of it was going to that interest rate. Oh my gosh. If you don't realize that, you're paying your $40. Now, this person hasn't done anything wrong. Let's say they didn't notice. Let's say they continued to just keep paying $40 a month, which you can do because that's what they're allowed to do. So at the end of 9 long years, they finally got that very last bill to pay off that $2,000. That $2,000 from that car accident 9 years ago. And with this final payment, you are sending off the final payment and contributing a total of $4,261. You have literally paid more than double what the original was. If you had paid cash, $2,000, because you decided to pay $40 at a time, it took an insane amount of time. I mean, I'm sure you don't have that car anymore. Do you even have the same job? Do you live in the same place? To be getting a bill for something so long ago has got to be mentally wearing on you, right? Well, let's say you listened to Miss Colleen over here and you said, I remember her saying I needed a low number, a really low number, and that 19.8 was not very good. So I looked around and MSGCU actually offers to 16, 17, 18-year-olds that this is the card you can apply for, a 12.75 interest rate Visa credit card. So if I did exactly the same thing, $40 a month, same $2,000, but with a much lower interest rate, it would take me 6 years. I'd shave 3 years off, and wow, $868 extra. I mean, that's like $1,500 I saved in a second for doing exactly the same thing, right? So first of all, this is why these interest rates are so important. What's a couple of percent? 19.7, 17.9. This is the difference between a couple of percent. A couple $1,000 is the difference between a couple of a percent, right? So you say, well, that's great. That is wonderful that you got that down to $868. But you know what? Paying almost $3,000 for something that was $2,000 still seems like a lot extra. Still seems 6 years still seems like a really long time. So what do I do? How do I not pay $900? How do I get out of this? And this is a point where a lot of people get stuck. Or I should say, this is a point where people feel stuck. They feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not even putting anything else on the card. I mean, literally, we haven't made a single other purchase. We're only paying the original $2,000. Imagine if we were continuing to use the card. Pay 40, charge 40, pay 40, charge 60, pay 40, charge 80. Not only would the balance never be going down, but we're just throwing money away. And we get kind of stuck here. Well, 12.75 was the lowest interest rate I could find. Now, this is the best part you're going to hear all day. How do I get out of this? You pay more than the minimum. It sounds simple, it seems obvious, but if you're getting a bill that says, please pay at least $40, in your head, why would I want to pay more than they're asking me to? Well, this is why. This is why right here. If you were to pay $100 a month, 60 more bucks, one work shift, one night of babysitting, one network, one day of work net. It takes just over 2 years, less than $500 extra. That's what the bad interest rate. You get the good interest rate, $261 extra. You paid off that $2,000 in less than 2 years. You did it for a mere $100 a month. And after all that, it costs you 260 bucks. Now stop and think about that for a second. You got into a car accident, and I bet your biggest concern was how much is it going to cost to repair the car, right? Repair shop A, $1,500. Repair shop B, $2,000. Repair shop C, $2,500. Okay, I'm going to go with repair shop B that was $2,000. And that's what your biggest concern is, which is important. But how you pay that off, how you pay that $2,000, does it turn into $2,200? Or does it turn into $3,000 or $4,000 or $4,500? That's where the credit cards are a tool or a trap, right? Is it a tool? Is it worth my while to put $2,000 on this credit card right now so I can get back to work, so I can get back to school? I'll pay it off as soon as I can. Maybe it'll cost an extra 150 bucks in interest. Is it worth it to me? Yeah, you know what? For the amount of time it would take for me to save $2,000, I'd rather just pay the 150 and get it done now. Would I rather pay $3,000? Would I rather pay $800? No, that's too much wasted money, right? That's too much spending for getting absolutely nothing in return. And this is why it's so important. These lessons, these charts that show, because in your mind, if I were to say, okay, paying $40 at a time, how long would it take? Well, let's see, 2,000 divided by 40, a few years, right? A few years. You wouldn't say 9 years. That's craziness. You don't see how this snowballs into a huge amount of debt. Okay, let me see what I have here next. Looking at your credit card statement, looking at your bill, you really need to look at your bill. Don't just look at amount due. Oh, payment due, $24. Nope, that's just one little piece. Okay, the dates, what's the period of time this bill is covering. Let's look at all of these items. Let's see. Yep, I went to Coffee Corner. Yep, I bought these tickets. Yep, I have that. I want to confirm that these are all my expenses. You know, certainly if I'm not checking my transactions on my phone every day, look in detail. Did I make all of these purchases? Excuse me. What's my total balance? What is the total amount I owe? And how much is due? $24 out of $1,400? Man, if you were to only pay $24 out of that, that's going to take you forever to pay off. You have to have that self-control. You have to have that willpower to say, I'm going to spend $200, $300, $75, as much as I can, as much as, you know, fits into my budget towards this balance. A credit card is not extra income. It's not extra stuff I can have that I'll just pay off over time. No, it's extra stuff that ends up costing you sometimes 2 or 3 times as much as you thought it would. So let me see, I remembered. We're gonna go back to our video. To share. Okay, so this is a Cureton, a therapy session, relationship between someone and their credit card, and it gets into the billing cycles. So.
So tell me, Jen, what brings you into relationship counseling today?
My credit card?
Oh, you have quite the sense of humor.
No, I mean, this was my credit card's idea.
Hello.
Oh.
I just can't take it anymore. I'm at my limit, literally.
Oh my. Jen, the key to a successful partnership with your credit card is to pay it in full on time.
Pay it in full on time.
Pay it in full on time.
That's right. Your credit card's billing cycle is the period of time between billings. It can vary depending on the card issuer, so you must understand when it starts and when it ends for each credit card you use. During that time frame, purchases, credits, and any fees or finance charges are added and subtracted from your account. And when your billing cycle closes, you are billed for the remaining balance. This will be reflected in your credit card statement.
Which you would know if you ever opened one.
Shh.
Your statement also shows your payment due date, which is usually about 20 days after your billing cycle ends. Your bill must be paid before the due date, in what's known as the grace period, in order to avoid late fees. And it must be paid in full to avoid being charged interest on the balance.
Make sure you allow extra time for your payment to process, too.
In the meantime, your next billing cycle will already be underway. It starts with whatever balance was left unpaid at the end of the previous billing cycle and goes from there, adding and subtracting your credit card activity for the current cycle.
What happens to our relationship if I can't pay off my balance?
I will make your life absolutely miserable.
What? What if we compromise and I pay the minimum payment? That's gotta count for something.
Well, making minimum payments on time may protect your credit rating and dodge the penalties related to missing a payment altogether. But you will be charged interest on the remainder of the balance.
And that interest accumulates quickly. If you only pay the minimum every month, I can keep you in debt for a really long time.
You wouldn't.
Oh, yes, I would. Start missing payments, and I'll tank your credit score. Raise your interest rates. Trust me, sister, you don't want to go there.
Okay, let's talk about strategies for managing this conflict. Jen, I want you to turn to your credit card and imagine it's cash. Treating your card like cash means using it to pay for things within your budget. Bills, groceries, all the regular things you know you can afford with the money you already have.
What's the point of having a credit card if I'm just gonna treat it like cash?
For the convenience, and depending on the specifics of your card, for the rewards.
What? I don't want you to think I'm using you just for your rewards.
Why not? I'm cool with it.
Really?
If you're paying in full and on time, it's perfectly fine to enjoy the perks of your credit card. So, how do you feel?
I feel recharged.
And I feel renewed interest.
What?
No!
Relax. Renewed interest in this relationship, not on my credit card balance.
Oh, well, in that case, I would say balance has been restored.
Why does everyone forget about me? I'm a really nice gift card. I've always been there for them.
Yeah, all right. It's adorable. Going. Oops. Okay. Oh, hold on one moment. I'm on the wrong one. There we go. Okay, now we're sharing. The do's and don'ts. So do treat your card like cash, right? A credit card is not extra money. You're paying for it with money in your bank account. You're paying for it with money you earn. So if you earn $500 a month, you should only be spending $500 a month, no matter that, whether it's with cash, a debit card, a credit card. Remember, we were talking last time about debit, credit, cash, prepaid card. They're just different methods to pay for things, but you still have that same $500 that has to be, split up. So a credit card is just another vessel to make payments. It's not extra money. Do pay for things within your regular budget, right? Decrease relying on credit cards. That it can be tempting, it can be easy. Well, I'm really thirsty, so it's an emergency that I get this water. Well, I need a pen, so it's an emergency I buy this pen. Things become emergencies that really are not emergencies at all. And that's where that willpower, that self-control comes in. Don't use your card as extra money. It's not extra income. It's not, oh, this dinner's on me. I've got $1,000 limit. Well, you're going to be paying for that. Do not use credit to justify extravagant purchases. Well, I can afford to do this. You can afford to do as much as you earn, right? Getting a credit card does not allow you to afford anything extra. It just gives you a safety net in case an emergency happens, and you can maybe pay for it a little bit later than you originally were going to. That's it. And do not postpone saving because you have a credit card. That is a big one. That's a terrible argument I hear. Well, why do I need to have a rainy day fund? Why do I need to have a savings account if I can just use my credit card in an emergency? If I can, just put the rainy day emergencies on my credit card. Well, okay. Well, what if you had a car accident and you put $2,000 on your credit card for your car accident, and now you need your car towed, or now you need to go to the eye doctor, or now you need to buy a new pair of contact lenses or something that you didn't expect, and there's already purchases on your credit card, or your rainy day is a little more expensive than you thought, or you're still paying off last month's rainy day on your credit card. They're two different things, right? Your rainy day fund is, when that furnace breaks, when that repair that you can take the time to comparison shop around and get that best deal. And then, maybe put that on the credit card and pay off as much as you can right away. Whereas you're stuck in the middle of the night, you need a tow truck. You know what? Just put it on the credit card. We'll figure it out in the morning. It's two different situations. Key takeaways from credit that I'd like you to leave today with. Credit cards are not created equal. Ask questions. I say that at every single presentation. Ask questions. If it sounds like someone's trying to just, don't worry about that. You don't need to know that. Don't worry your pretty little head about that. No, excuse me. This is my money, and I'm not signing anything that I don't understand. So what was that fee for again? Explain it to me again. Sorry. Do you have anyone else over there? All right. Well, sorry. Guess I'm not going to be signing up. Make sure you understand. Look for low limit. I didn't really even get into that, but why do we have a $300, $500 limit? Why is the limit so low on first credit cards? Because you don't need to go out and spend $2,000. I'm taking a leap, but I bet you don't have $2,000 in your checking account. So if you got a bill for $2,000, you wouldn't be able to afford to pay it. So if I allow you to borrow only as much as about $500 at a time, and you're 18, you've got a job, well, you can probably afford to pay up to $500 at a time or so. So you only need to borrow as much as you can afford. You only need to allow yourself to borrow. Think about it. If I offered you a card with a $10,000 limit, you shouldn't be making any different purchases, right? If it was a $50,000 limit, it shouldn't matter. You can't afford 10,000, you can't afford 50,000. So it really shouldn't matter what the limit is, but in order to trick yourself, in order to not fall victim to, oh, it's an emergency to get these concert tickets. Well, it's an emergency to fly across the country and see my friend because I have the ability to just nip it in the bud, just cut it out. I do not have the ability. I have the ability to borrow as much as I can pay back. So you start with a low limit. As you age, as you earn more, it gets raised. Don't worry, it gets raised. You're not going to have a $500 limit when you're 30 years old. No, it's going to get higher, but you're starting small. I highly recommend putting your credit card in your mobile wallet. Again, you don't even have to carry it around then. Credit cards are a tool in the sense that if you pay the whole thing, you charge $80, send them $80. Charge $150, send them $150. If you pay the whole thing in full, you never pay any interest. So I was focusing on interest and how expensive interest can get because people fall into that trap. But if you're starting out and you're only putting as much on the card as you can pay off in full, and you're getting into that habit, which is exactly what I want you to do, only put $20, $30, as much as you can pay off 100% of. Always pay 100%. Then you're just using a credit card as a 30-day interest-free loan all the time, right? It only becomes a problem or an issue when you don't pay the full balance. And now there's consequences. If you just pay the full balance every month, you're never paying a dime more than the original cost. While it's tempting to pay the minimum balance, it's understandably tempting. You got $100 in your pocket, and you can either send your credit card company 100, or you could send them 50 and put this other 50 in your pocket. I get that's tempting, but I just showed you exactly why you have to send them all $100. You have to send them all 100 because that was one purchase. Over years, they didn't put a single other purchase on there. What about other credit cards? What about your car loan minimum payments? What about your Macy's card minimum payment? What about getting a credit card for your IKEA furniture? You can see how this just becomes a drowning in debt. Have to pay more. Don't ever pay the minimum. Always start off paying everything. If you can pay the entire balance, that is your goal every month. If you have to go a little bit less, you have to go a little bit less. But make a point to never pay the minimum. Always pay more, something more. Because as we can see, the minimum is kind of designed to keep you in debt. You know, if $33 out of 40 is being wasted, that's a terrible deal. It's a terrible deal for you. When you have a credit card, it's secure. There's zero liability on your transactions if it's lost or stolen. Again, like using it online or like using it overseas, you're not stuck with zero money. You know, someone takes your debit card information and they've drained your account, and the whole time the investigation is going on, you have no access to any money. So if your credit card is tied up in an investigation, you can still use your checking account. You can still use your money. And we're just starting to get into the concept of, you know, building credit and establishing credit. But the more responsible you are with your credit card habits, and again, that's your first interaction, your first experience of building a reputation. Well, what kind of credit card payments do you make? Do you pay them off in full? Do you pay them off on time? Do you pay the minimum? Well, what are going to be the answers to those questions? So the more responsible you are with your credit card payments, the more responsible you appear for all of these future opportunities of a business or a wedding or travel, or we're certainly going to get into the benefits of positive credit later. But for right now, credit cards are not the enemy, but they are something that take research, that take questions, that take comparison shopping, and they take an informed decision before making a choice. So I recommend getting a credit card, but I recommend it at the right time for you. And certainly feel free to go to any credit union to ask any questions. You can come into MSGCU. You can contact me on your own, but make sure you understand what you are getting into, how much it's going to cost, what happens if, as many scenarios as you can come up with before you put your name to something. So, all right, Ms. Cureton, do you have any additional questions?
No questions. Do you guys have any questions? If you do, you can unmute and ask, or if you want, you can type them in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to read them.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot to put on, but it's very introductory. Quite honestly, even if you know a little bit about credit, you're going to be better off than someone who knows nothing, because it's very easy to get into a very difficult spot without having any education on a subject.
And I will say this, you have to remember, credit is something that you have to handle responsibly. It's not free money. It's not a free opportunity for you to get free stuff. You have to pay for that. And if you don't have the money to pay for it, then you shouldn't be purchasing it, because not paying your bills will have a negative impact on your ability to have credit. And at some point, you're going to want to buy a car or buy a house or even rent an apartment. It requires you to have good credit, which means they're looking to see if you've paid your bills on time, and are you worthy for us to extend you, credit so that you can make these big purchases. So as you are starting out, you've got to handle this responsibly. It's not free. You're going to pay for it one way or another, and there is no way around it. You can't just run up charges and think nobody will ever find you or catch you. It is always going to follow you your entire financial history in life. So be responsible. Well, if there aren't any questions or comments, then we will wrap this session up and bring it to a close. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Thank you, Colleen. Excellent presentation as always. And we will see you guys next time.
Thank you all.
Everybody have a great day.